to which obviously it becomes too loud, and it's kind of, it could sound better if it was a little quieter. So I think in some cases, there's some of the records,
so interesting.
Some of the big records that come out are a little bit, I think it has had some sort of an effect, some sort of a beneficial effect on levels. Some people aren't pushing it quite as hard as they used to. Some people are. I mean, some of the big records are like squashed, they're like super loud.
Yeah. It's so interesting, though, the whole like listening device thing. I don't think I ever thought about it that way of like, at the end of the day, mastering, you're trying to make it sound good on as many speakers as possible and as many headphones as possible. And I think the whole hi-fi thing versus what everybody's listening to makes is really important because people are listening on, earbuds or AirPods or little tiny Bluetooth speakers and stuff. And so we got to make sure that's sounding good on everything.
I don't think many people listen to music on a stereo system in their living room anymore, honestly.
I do through a Bluetooth. I have a little Marantz. I have like a whatever, but I'm still going through Bluetooth through Spotify. So, and and I'm probably on like the bizarre end of the spectrum there, right?
Yeah.
Like the overly into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even that much.
Right. Well, I was working on a Billie Idol EP recently, and which it hasn't come out yet, actually. But, I was listening to the stuff that, the White Wedding and all that stuff.
The classics.
I started listening to that, and then I listened to I was just sent very loud mixes. So the other point about this is that, of course, the mastering engineer gets the blame if everyone says it's too loud. In reality, that's not. You don't know.
In.
It's So anyway, the super loud mixes. And I was really struck by, he's got that signature vocal thing that he does. But the music from, back then, it was beautifully recorded. There's no distortion on anything. It's very kind of neat and precise sounding. It was recorded by engineers who took their job, were trained, and did the whole thing. And that's that sound, And a lot of people say, oh, yeah, the music of that, it's just better back in the 70s and 80s and stuff, which is true to a certain extent, but that was that sound. That sound's not going to work now. Things sound different now. They just sound different. They've got a lot of distortion on them. The new stuff it's louder. It's like, and that's the sound that we have. So there's no point in complaining about it or whatever, It's
being
like
nostalgic of the
being
earlier
nostalgic
day.
and wishing that they had done the same thing as they did on White Wedding and why this doesn't sound as good or anything. It's just a different mentality. It's a different world that we live in. It's a loud world. It's a short attention span world. It's like, it's not, you can't go back. Maybe in 20 years, people will listen to this period of music and say, wow, they really hammered that stuff. I don't know, but you basically, it's like that's the sound. And that's, as I sat there and listened to it, and I listened to, the old stuff, and then I put up the mixes that I'd been sent, and I was like, that's how things are these days. That's how they sound. That's the sound. It's different.
Yeah, it's different. Well, I love that you're able to kind of constantly evolve and grow, and like you mentioned, every 4 to 5 years you're changing your setup and growing and just getting better. I think that's super important to just be aware of what's going on and evolve and get better with your craft as we do this, the lifelong learning thing.
Yeah, well, actually what it is that you can't ever go anywhere. Once you get to a certain level, you'll just be working all the time. So you can't really travel. So the only thing you can do to keep things fresh is to buy new gear. And that sort of keeps you interested because you're like, oh, that sounds different. It's like that's all that's left for us. Basically,
I think Glenn Schick, ditched everything except for headphones and and a laptop, and he goes traveling around the world, right?
See, I actually, yes, that's true, and I do know somebody who actually does big records, who works on I don't know if he actually, works on a laptop, like masters the stuff on a laptop, but he can be traveling and do like revisions and with headphones and because he works. That's one reason why he's kind of kept everything in the box. I've actually, the rig that I have at the moment is, I have the Key Audio BXT system, and I ordered it with Rode cases, and all my stuff is in Rode cases. And those speakers they actually work pretty well in kind of almost any room, really.
I've heard amazing things about the key speakers.
So basically, though, I've got it. So in fact, I'm planning to do this. It's like in the summer in LA when it's hot, you can rent a house out by the beach for a couple of months and pack all your stuff up, go out there and set it up. And if you've got somewhere with a reasonable, a room with reasonable dimensions, a high ceiling and stuff, and then you can travel. I mean, it's kind of heavy stuff. it's feasible. Like headphones and a laptop, but it's possible to do that. I think with this, that's part of the reason why I have the rig that I've got at the moment, is that it's relatively easy to move it around. I don't know whether that plan's going to work, but we'll see. We'll go up to Palm Springs for the weekend and sort of set the stuff
some speakers,
set the stuff up by the pool. And no, not really. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, those keys, I've heard great things about them. I know Jacob Collier uses them, and the person that helped me out with the acoustics in this room also said they're incredible. So yeah,
they're like headphones, actually.
How so?
I don't know. When I listen to them, that's kind of what it reminds me of. So I think it's a good thing, because that's how everybody listens to music now, anyway. So I think it's kind of a modern sounding speaker. It's not like the ATC thing or the PMC thing, which is kind of, a friend of mine described the ATC thing. They just said, yeah, that's the alt-right speaker.
So speaking of, I guess, growth and, I guess going with the times, what are your thoughts on the whole Atmos thing? How is that affecting mastering engineers?
Yeah, that's a good question. Dolby kind of gave up the certification thing probably about a year ago or something like that. So there's a lot of people just throwing up a bunch of speakers in rooms, and honestly, a lot of it's probably pretty bad. I mean, it's a phase nightmare waiting to happen, really, isn't it? I mean, it's like very difficult, I think, to get that thing right. I saw the aforementioned. I was over at Manny Marroquin's place. So we went over there and had a tour of his place, and he's got the Meyer blue horn system. He's got a Dolby Atmos room, and that actually sounded really good. And I think the Meyer thing is probably, because they design those sort of arrays for live sound and stuff, so they obviously know how to deal with the time difference. Yeah, so I think if anybody could figure it out, it would be them. That's my feeling about it. It's hard to tell. I mean, there's a lot of you could set up a room and be doing back catalog stuff probably for the rest of your life. I mean, there's a lot of that kind of work. Do you want to do that kind of work? I don't know. Not personally, no. It's not very interesting to me. I would like to have a really good Atmos room, but you got to buy all those speakers. And
you don't think it's a thing that's doable on headphones at some point, or?
No, I think you'd need to. I do have a plan actually to set up an Atmos room but in Mexico City, actually, which may or may not happen. I'm not sure. It's in the early stages, in the business plan stage. But yeah, I mean, definitely the labels are asking for Atmos mixes from the mixers. It's mostly at the moment, I think, mixers that are just producing Atmos versions. From what I can tell, like Josh Goodwin has a setup, and it's mostly just that they don't want. They want to make sure that their stuff is being handled appropriately. So they build some kind of a room and just check it, just to make sure that it's not being destroyed in the process of. But I think there probably is room for a high-end mastering setup. I would like to try to do that. But I think at the same time, it might be a good idea to have it available for film mixing and stuff like that. I think that would be because that is
the form. That's
a definite thing.
It's been around for a long time for film, and
yeah, I think if you had a room that was properly set up, but then you're in the realm of spending quite a lot of money, and so you probably have to
justify it.
Find one of these people for whom $500,000 is like sort of $20 for us, sort of one of those kind of
investors,
kind of people who they're around, well, they just want to do it, they want to be. There's plenty of people. I remember years ago, the record plant in Sausalito is a famous kind of recording studio where Fleetwood Mac recorded Rumors and stuff like that. I was talking to the guy that ran it but it's not there anymore. Well, it's still there, but it's just an empty building for years now. But he told me, he said, yeah, it costs, I don't remember the number, so much a month to keep this place open. And he said, my main talent is that, he goes, I go down to LA periodically and I know the people, I know the parties to go to. And he said, I find people who think that it's glamorous to be involved in the music business, who have a lot of money. And that's how I keep the place running. And, that's traditionally, actually, the studio business is probably more to do with money laundering than anything else, honestly. So that's kind of how, that's that sort of thing that's kind of how that is. It's like, a lot of it is, super wealthy people that they'll just buy all the stuff and then, they want to go in there with their band for a few weeks every year, and it's like, so,
wow.
So you that kind of stuff is that's a thing, So I think maybe a really good Atmos room is probably in that. I probably shouldn't be saying any of these things that I'm saying now. It's not a very good idea, really. But it's just that years ago, I worked with this guy who's a big-time rap producer, and he just explained it to me. He said, look, if you've got a lot of money that came through some less than squeaky clean source, there's not, you can't buy plane tickets, you can't buy property. But you can
buy some gear.
Go to. Well, you can make records. You can buy. You can go to a studio and with a briefcase full of cash. It's like so that's one of the things that you can do. It's like that I think is like. Well, it used to be a big part of the music industry. I don't know how much it is anymore.
We will work for cash.
Yes. Well, yes. At the plant, at one point, the record plant, there was a guy, used to do the payroll every month and walk in with a briefcase full of cash, $50,000 or whatever, and just open it up and pay everybody. Then they got busted by the feds, went in there. And it was actually run by the federal government for a few years. It was known as Club Fed, because the federal government didn't know what to do with it. So they just it continued to be recording
That is a wild
studio.
story that I've never heard before. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no, that place is